Hello, fellow human. Sam here. It's morning, so I've got morning voice. Anyway, I'm getting ready for work, and I am gonna make an attempt to vlog my experiences with reading the BookTube Prize books that were selected for judging. It is the day after the announcement of the BookTube Prize. We'll call it the long list, but it's for the Octofinals. I was selected as a judge, and I'm going to be reading from Nonfiction Group E, and in that group, I'll post the picture because Robert provided us with graphics this year. Those are the books that I'm going to be reading through. Up front, I went to the library. Well, I checked the system to see what books were available. There was only one that was not in the system at all, and it was available at my bookstore, Toadstool, so I picked this up. This is The Sinner and the Saint. It's a book about Dostoevsky and the gentleman murderer who inspired the masterpiece. So this is looking at the source of inspiration for Crime and Punishment. And I never read that book, but this is, let me see here. It's high up there. It's got a 4.37 rating on Goodreads and a 4.11 on Storygraph. So actually, all of these books have high ratings. The lowest ranked one is The Doctor's Blackwell, which was available at my library. How Two Pioneering Sisters Brought Medicine to Women and Women to Medicine. But this was ranked 3.65 on Goodreads, and it's comparable. It's 3.63 on Storygraph. And then I also got, this is the highest rated across the board, I believe. Yeah. With a 4.53 on Goodreads and a 4.49 on Storygraph. We've got Facing the Mountain, a true story of Japanese American heroes in World War II. So this is highly anticipated by me. I voted for this, but I'm just coming off of reading 2 war books, and they're World War II books. So I just finished reading Mother Night, and I reviewed that, and also what's it called? I'll post a link to the review from Mother Night. It's irrelevant to this, but I absolutely loved it. It's my first 5-star of the year. And also Empire of the Sun, which is a part of my Booker shortlist, not so short project. Shortlist project. I don't know what I'm calling it. Anyway, that I'll link to. And then the last book I was able to collect from the library was The Codebreaker by Walter Isaacson. So this is Jennifer Doden's Gene Editing and the Future of Human Race. She is I think she got a Nobel Prize for her work in genetics. This book rated, where is it? A 4.33 on Goodreads and a 4.21 on Storygraph. These are all high rated books. The other 2 books that are available through me through the library through ebooks or audiobooks. I've got A Ghost in the Throat, which I'm actually starting today. And let me see, where is that? Is there a subtitle to this? This one is kind of, I'm nervous about. This one was on my TBR. In fact, it was on one of my recent, list for books that, for the BookTube spin. I think I put this on there. I'm pretty sure I did. I'll link that above. Anyway, this is a true original. It's in a stunningly unusual prose debut, Dorian Nigirova sculpts essays and autofiction to explore inner life and the deep connection felt between 2 writers centuries apart. In the 1700s, an Irish noblewoman, on discovering her husband had been murdered, drinks handfuls of his blood and composes an extraordinary poem. In the present day, a young woman narrowly avoids tragedy. On encountering the poem, she becomes obsessed with the parallels with her own life and sets out to track down the rest of the story. A devastating and timeless tale about one woman's feeling her voice by reaching into the past to find another's. This sounds great. I'm just concerned because it is a memoir, but it's also a little bit autofiction is what they're saying, so it kind of makes me a little wary. It's a collection of essays, but it's historical based, so I don't know. I'm excited to get to this one. And then that one was rated 4.13 on Goodreads and 4.23 on Storygraph. And then the last book that was selected is Beloved Beasts, Fight. I can't even read I'm trying to read the little graphic. Fighting for Life in the Age of Extinction. And so this might be sad. I think is it an essay collection? No, I was assuming that it was an essay collection. This I'm going to be picking up on the ebook, or I think it's also available to me on AnyPlay or something like that. I forget. But anyway, I'm starting with, we're one book down. We've got A Ghost in the Throat by Darren Nigropa. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm probably not, and I just consulted the audiobook. Darian is writing this. It's not so much just a biography, it's partially a memoir, and it's also about the process of doing research and trying to track down a poet named, I can't remember her full name, but it's Aline Dove, and that is, she had written a collection of poems that Darian had identified with at a very young age because it's so much about being a woman. Well, it's very difficult to track down this woman. This is a book about women's erasure in history. Darian is constantly drawing a line or a parallel, not so much a line, between being a woman, a mother, cleaning up after everyone, cleaning herself away, taking her footprint off of society or out of her family's home, but at the same time trying to track down this woman who's basically a ghost. She's not only just like a very difficult person to see and to get information about, but she's also someone who is kind of haunting her because she is a source of inspiration. She's inspired her poetry. I'm assuming she inspired her poetry. But anyway, Darian is very much a poet, and that comes across in the cadence of the writing in this book. This will be a very difficult book for any of the other books in my category to defeat. From me, at least, I'm floored with how beautiful the writing is in this book. And it's not even just that the writing is gorgeous, it's just that the approach is different. It's a unique perspective. It's not just about a single topic. I mean, it's about one woman, but it's about the process in equal measure. Whether it is a glitch or an embellishment, this is a female text, and I carry it close to my heart. So obviously this is number one because it's my first book, but this is gonna be tough to beat. Good luck, other books. So I look like I just changed back to my original outfit and put on the previous I just reviewed the video footage that I did earlier. So I meant to actually do book reviews as I finished reading the books and then, edit the video as I went along, but that didn't work out. I had quite a busy couple of months. But anyway, this is the only book you've seen me review. I have 5 more books to go through. The next book I completed was Facing the Mountain by Daniel James Brown, a true story of Japanese American heroes in World War II. So this book follows 4 young men and their families and how they were treated right immediately after the attack of Pearl Harbor, and how they ended up either getting imprisoned or going to internment camps, and how some of these men managed to escape that, but they ended up going into war, and they ended up in a group that is comprised of Asian American men. And so they were sent to Italy to fight during World War II, and how but what I find most fascinating about this book is the research and the way that it was managed. because when you're reading through this book, it kind of comes off as like a personal account of what happened. And all of this was comprised through archives and like interviews with family and friends and other soldiers. So it's really kind of fascinating how it came together, especially since Mr. Brown himself doesn't have any firsthand account of what happened and how things went down, but you get a nice sense of place and how what it was really kind of like to be in the war. I'm reading this at a time when I'm really into and digging war books. I was inspired to read this, and I did. I absolutely loved it. It was exactly what I would be looking for a book if you're looking for a war book, especially for World War II, because it's a unique perspective. It's really fascinating. And I mean, the delivery was something else. The next book I read was The Doctor's Blackwell, How Two Pioneering Sisters Brought Medicine to Women and Women to Medicine. And this was by Janice P. Nimura. This book is a biography of primarily Elizabeth Blackwell, who was the first sister to become a doctor. She really struggled to break into the field, and she was known as the first female physician, and she wanted to reach for becoming a surgeon. And her little sister, she was encouraging her to get into the field as well, and it was really about them kind of trying to get more women involved in medicine. As much as I went into this thinking, okay, it's going to be a nice little feminist text or something, it ended up being more of like how these two sisters gatekeeped the system of becoming a doctor. They didn't really think very fondly of nurses or women that were suffragettes, that were trying to get more rights for women. They looked down on that, and it just kind of seemed counterproductive to their goals. So I don't understand their position. A lot of this book hinged on the writings of Elizabeth and letters that she had written. And I mean, in some ways I admire her because she wasn't a woman that just ran out to go get a husband. There was a point when she was injured on the job, and it was during she was not giving birth, but she was helping with the labor, and she ended up getting conjunctivitis from, we'll say, splash. And because this was like the 1850s, there really wasn't any cure or no penicillin for treatment. And long story short, she ends up losing the eye. And yeah, she kind of just brushes it off as a minor inconvenience. That's how it was handled. I think that the chapter was actually called An Inconvenience. Okay. She didn't seem to think anything of it. If she did, then she never wrote about it. And I think that there was a little bit of something lost in some of her letters, or either she was editing herself out, or she was being conservative and overly so. So it's kind of hard to gauge her true reaction. The next book I read was The Codebreaker, Jennifer Doudna, Gene Editing and the Future of the Human Race, and this was by Walter Isaacson. This book isn't just a biography of Jennifer and like what it is that she created, but she was the inventor of CRISPR. She and her colleague Emanuela Charpentier actually ended up going on to win the Nobel Prize in 2020 for this gene editing tool that they've created. Now, what the book primarily focuses on, and it talks about how it works, and it also talks about all of the ethics around whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing, and or if it's something necessary. It could be a really helpful tool for eliminating something like sickle cell anemia, but it could also be used for people to edit their genes and make sure that they're of a certain height or their skin looks a certain way. So it talks about a lot of ethic issues. So this was a fascinating book. It is quite dense, and it has a lot of scientific data, we'll say that, in it, but it was really interesting. I was never really bored. So yeah, this is one of my favorites. The next book I read was, I actually listened to this on audio, and this was The Beloved Beast by Michelle Newis. I don't know how to say her last name. I apologize. But it's Fighting for Life in the Age of Extinction. And this is actually a history of discovering extinction and how we've handled it throughout history. And that's pretty much the basis of the book. It talks about different programs that were established through time in helping to keep species from being eliminated, and sometimes how that didn't really help out or work out in the end, but it's basically goes over different animal species and subjects or genuses. But this is a book about general conservation, and I recommend this if you are just for like a baseline knowledge of information. And it's helpful, it's interesting, but it's a quick read too. It was like a one-day thing for me, I think. It was quick. But it's enjoyable. I just think it is a basic book about extinction and how we're trying to conserve species. So the last book that I read was The Sinner and the Saint, Dostoevsky and the Gentleman Murderer Who Inspired the Masterpiece. So this is a biography Kevin Birmingham created that is not just about Lassagne and it's about the celebrity surrounding his trial and how that inspired the story of Crime and Punishment. But it's also a biography of Dostoevsky himself. It's also, so we get a triple whammy, about the history and politics surrounding everything that's going on at this time. When I started this, I was thinking, oh crap, I can't give this a high rating. I've not read Crime and Punishment. But as a result, you get past that first chapter or intro, I want to read Crime and Punishment more than anything. This was incredibly entertaining. I did not think that this was going to be as great as it was. I honestly didn't think that I was going to love this as much as I did. But yeah, I want to look up more books by Kevin Birmingham and read more that he's created. So as I'm recording this, it is March the 31st, and we'll be getting the actual announcement of which 3 books are going to be moving on to the next round. But I ended up ranking the books almost in order that they appeared on the list. I just swapped 2 books. And true to form, I did not rank the books in the same order that they appeared from Goodreads and Storygraph. I gave, of course, Ghost in the Throat is my number 1 pick. My number 2 pick, had to be this. This was so much fun. I can't believe how entertaining this was. I loved it to pieces. I don't know if anyone else is going to feel the same way about these books than I did. So I'm like, I think that this is just going to go out in the air. This was a really difficult decision. My number 3 pick, I ended up choosing The Codebreaker because I felt like I got so much more out of it. I learned a lot. It is science heavy, but it's really, it was just plain fascinating. Which meant that Facing the Mountain got kicked out. I loved that book, but it ended up getting kicked down into the lower rungs. I can see that one moving forward though, because it was a really well crafted book. It was just, I don't know, there's just something about it. It had a lot of heart. Number 5 was The Beloved Beast, which, it was a basic rundown of extinction and how we're trying to conserve the animal populations. But and then lastly, The Doctor's Blackwell, which I really didn't enjoy all that much. It was just frustrating. It kind of just annoyed the crap out of me. So yeah, that's how I ranked. So I will come back here and edit in my reaction to the wins. I just listened to the winners, or those who are moving on to the next round.